Welcome back to the Manor Entropians. Julian McBain here. And we are actually in my old hunting grounds. We're currently to the south of Levis Outpost, and I've done a lot of hunting in this area, up on Sharp Talon Ridge, or Sharp Claw Ridge, and down south of the East Hangers. This used to be like my stomping ground. Hang on, guys. Sorry about that. Allergies are killing me. This was like my favorite place to be. I was here. I spent months here just hunting berry clad. Back before I was a content creator. Although I've done some of my early vids were actually here. If you go back and look. Ah, that's not what I wanted. Whoops. To run and get that loot now. Crap. Ah. Looks like that was it for that Mind Force chip. I knew it was coming. Want to use up the ones I have before using any more. And my sword's almost broken. I bought a new one. Like, all my equipment's down. What the hell, right? But yeah, no, I started out from Corinth, and I hunted the 16s on my last live stream, and the results were not great, to say the least. Thus I decided that I would... Oh boy. They're really intermingled here. Thus I decided I'd go back to hunting 14s, which I knew that the loot... my looter skill is more appropriate to them. Although I have the feeling that out here we're going to get a lot of interference from berry clad, which is fine. You know, it's funny. I used to live in a place that looked quite a bit like this. Not soft desert, but the plains, badlands-like area, because that's what this basically is. It's badlands. A little less craggy. You know, there are the hills over there. But I did. I lived in an area much like this. The closest rendition of which I lived there for a year. A little under a year. But then when I moved to only 3 hours away, I still went back and camped every year. And then, but even then, the city I was in was on the border of the Badlands. It was like right on the edge. And I loved it. And I think it's because I really learned what I was made of out there. Like, I live in Vermont. I grew up in Vermont. I was born in New Hampshire, but I grew up in Vermont. I'm a Vermonter. Even my accent's Vermont accent. But life in Vermont, although fairly simple, sometimes harsh, isn't any, with a couple of exceptions, isn't by any stretch of the imagination dangerous. Although now we have bears walking down Main Street in our city, so it's getting there. I wish I was making that up, by the way. You know, in Vermont, the biggest threats that you face to your life from nature will mostly come from our megafauna, of which we don't have a huge amount of predatory megafauna. Now, those that we do have trend toward the aggressive. So, yeah. Bye. You know, it is a thing. But, you know, bears will just as soon, you know, avoid you as engage with you. We do have some bigger cats from time to time, although not very many of them because they have such a large range, and it's questionable whether we technically have them or it was just wandering through. Had one of those in my backyard once, and we're talking, we call them catamounts. but it's most people call them pumas. But if you get lost in the woods, there's, oh, for crying out loud, there's food everywhere. Oh no, I didn't want to do that. There we go. Jesus Christ. It does not take much to create food and shelter in this state. You know, you walk by every tree, and that's shelter. And a lot of them have food. Nuts are everywhere. Fruit trees are prominent. Hunting is not difficult if you know what you're doing. And there are plenty of animals. So if you get lost, you got plenty to subsist with. And even then, there are very few places where you can get lost in this state where there isn't going to be some sort of village nearby. You can walk there in a day, so you might have to spend one night out in the yuck, right? Unless you're trying to. There are a couple spots where it might be a couple days travel, but even then, that's pushing it. That's if you're slow. Now, if you're injured, that's another story. But overall, that's not the case. And I thought Vermont was a hardy place to live, and it is to a certain extent because, you know, you still have to stack wood in the middle of the cold winters, and our winters do get chilly. And by chilly, I mean 40 below is fairly common. Well, no, 20 below is common. I'll rephrase that. 20 below is common. 40 below happens. Out in the Badlands, you get 105 during the summer, and you got 40 below during the winter. And out there, 40 below is common. And because of that, you really have to change how you think. Your whole mindset changes in that environment. Because you're in a place where the very air will kill you. You know, no jokes, no messing around. Like, they found the body of a woman who had driven out to the end of her driveway, which is a quarter-mile long. Her car stalled out. And she tried to walk back to her house, and she didn't make it. That is reality in some of the states in the Midwest. North Midwest of the United States. We're talking the Dakotas, we're talking Montana. And so that really shapes you. But there's something about living in a place that's so inimical to life. It alters your how your brain thinks. You become more self-reliant. You become more independent. You become more confident. Because you're living in a place like that. Now, overconfidence is bad. That'll kill you just as soon as the weather will. But I don't know. There's something about it. There was something about living in that place. There was something about camping in a place like this. I think it's because I built competence and confidence in myself by subjecting myself to such extremes. And I mean, that's why they make the special forces go through all the crap they have to go through. Think about it. Sears School, which takes place, I believe it's in Louisiana. It's the military's, oh God. I don't remember exactly what it stands for. Hang on a second, I'll look it up. Survival, Evasion, Resistance, and Escape. And there are several places that it takes place, although I believe one of them's in Louisiana, or it used to be. And they put you through the shit. Like, all the shit. They don't feed you. They put you through torture. And you volunteer for this shit. Like, they can't make you go through this. You have to volunteer because of what they put you through. I mean, they don't go through a lot of the actual torture, but they fuck with you. You have to get into, you know, and it's yeah, it's harsh. There's an old saying that never dare a graduate of the Sears School to eat a bug, they always will. Because they've been in a situation where they've had to. Because that's what there was to eat. And this is the non-classified stuff. Think about that for a second. But they do it so that they can survive. They build their trainees' confidence and competence by making them live in a place that is, by its design, inimical to life itself. And true, in that case, it's much more artificial because, you know, you have to evade patrols, and those patrols are actually, you know, technically they're on your side in the long run. If something were to go past you, they would definitely be helping you. But for the sake of the exercise, they're there to capture you. You know, they're there to hurt you. They are the enemy. So even though it's artificial, it simulates in a rather realistic form that same environment. Well, by contrast, you have to escape into nature that is also inimical to life. And I think one of the part of it used to be in Louisiana, or it's in the South. Like if they did it in the Everglades, it would not surprise me. And it might just be that that's where it's officially set because they don't want people to know where it really is, which would honestly be smart. But if you think about it, imagine being placed in the Everglades or the Bayou. Those places are also basically inimical to life because of all of the poisonous everything. It's like America's own Australia. You've got crocodiles, you've got poisonous snakes, you've got anacondas. Not anacondas, but large pythons. The snake problem is so bad in Florida, they're paying people to capture them. Good money, too. I think it's like $100 a snake. I saw that and I was like, damn, I'm in the wrong business. But what's the point of this whole conversation? No, I look at this digital terrain and I think about my past. And there's a part of me that misses that past. There is. You know, a lot of good things have happened since I've come home. A lot of good things are still to come. Depending on, you know, what happens in the next few months, my whole life could change. But there was something about knowing I had that strength. Knowing that there were times there was no one I could fall back on. Knowing that I could survive that. It was basically a rite of passage. One of several I've had in my life. And we're talking, I didn't have any real rites of passage until I was in my 30s. And that's not a good thing. I think that if I had had those rites of passage earlier in life, I would not have made the mistakes I made earlier in life. And right now, I'm trying to figure out how to design a rite of passage for my son. He turns 13 in December. That's an important age. But I don't know exactly how to design that rite of passage. But I've noticed those who do pass rites of passage have their shit together a lot better than those that don't. You know, that's why you go to cultures that still are, I hate to use the term primitive because I really think it's an inappropriate application of the term. It is. But for lack of a better term, they're more traditional. That's the term I'm looking for. They're more traditional. Look at your Mongolians. Look at some of your Chinese tribes. Look at... And I mean that seriously. Like, people who think that China is like one big homogenous culture are in for a rude awakening. Because there are still a lot of various, for lack of a better term, tribes that live in China. I mean, yeah, the government there definitely has a firm rule over everything. Downright authoritarian, but we're not going to get political here. But, and I haven't had the privilege of going to China yet. I'm hoping at some point I will have the experience, preferably in better times, because I ain't going there now. But there are a lot of, I've seen documentaries about a lot of the smaller villages. There are jungle villages out there. There is a village where people who live in the area come to the village, and the only way to get to the marketplace is by a rope bridge. And by rope bridge, I mean the classic army rope bridge. For those of you who have never served in the military or been in ROTC, that's literally a single rope going across the ravine. And it ain't low to the ground. So you're up there in a harness. Thank God it's not a Swiss seat. Just pulling yourself along the rope bridge with your baskets, and in order to get home, you gotta go back across the rope bridge with all your stuff. I'm not making that up, by the way. I kind of wish I were. Because part of me is like, I need to do it. And the other part of me is like, fuck that. Nope, 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 nope. There are bridges over places in China that I will not cross. It's like, not happening. There's one mountain where you're literally on a couple of 2x4s. Well, they're like 2x8s probably. Come on. Thank you. It's like, let's target everything but the long tooth. You're on a couple of 2x8s that are hammered into pegs in a mountainside, and the only hand holds a chain they've bolted up, and there's no railing. It's like a 300-foot drop. And I'm looking at that, and I'm like, no. Like, I like to think of myself, I'm not afraid of heights. I've been up at 10,000 feet, spinning airplanes, having a grand old time. I've done 2G dives. Like literally, we were at two gravities, 2Gs, for roughly 10 minutes. So, it's not the height. There's a difference between I'm afraid of heights and this is stupid. That borders on the this is stupid. No, that doesn't border. That's into the this is stupid. Like, build a real frickin' pathway, guys. Come on. And then there's the glass bridge across one of their giant ravines. And someone there has a sense of humor. There's videos of this. I'm sure you've all seen them. You start walking across the bridge, and the glass is programmed to make it look like the glass is cracking because somebody has a really perverse sense of humor. Honestly, I'm more pissed off at that one because I didn't think of it first, but that's okay. Just like, why? And I've seen people camp at these altitudes. Like, why would you want to camp on a rope over a gigantic height? And they're all up there having a grand old time. And I'm like, you have fun with that. Knowing my luck, I get up to pee in the middle of the night, forget where I am, and bye-bye. I'm telling you. But yeah, I mean, living in places like those, though, it really alters how you think. It really alters how you do things. And I think that if more of us were subjected to something of that nature, maybe not the 1,000-foot drops, but being subjected to hardship, deliberate, voluntary hardship. That's the term I'm thinking of. Deliberate, voluntary hardship, where we forcibly challenge ourselves to do something. That's not what I was wanting to aim for. You know, we voluntarily take that on. I think that we as a culture, or we as a species, would be better off. You know, everyone, as culture evolves and technology comes forth, things get easier. And the way we think of things also evolves. But there is utility and wisdom in our traditions. They exist for a reason. And there are those who think that progress for the sake of progress is good. And to a certain extent, they're correct. Progress is important. You know, there's a reason that we don't have evil institutions anymore. There's a reason that we don't, you know, eat... I can't even say eat raw... Well, we eat raw fish, not raw meat. There's a reason that we cook on a stove instead of over an open fire, generally speaking. There's a reason that we have microwaves. There's a reason that we have the cultural institutions we have, where we can now refine the arts, where we have engineers that build great works. These are all important. But if we give up our traditions entirely, we're going to miss the wisdom of those traditions. And part of the wisdom of those traditions is knowing how to push ourselves in a way that normal life doesn't allow us to push ourselves. We forget who we are. We forget what we are. We forget what we're capable of. And it's that last one that's the most dangerous. If we forget what we're capable of, we'll never know what we're capable of. We lose our sense of purpose. And without purpose, we've got nothing. You know, and I think that's why we have things are so tumultuous right now. I can't say that I know that for sure, but if I had to bet my life on the reason that everything is so screwed up at the moment, pandemic notwithstanding, because that's enough to screw anyone up, it's because we've lost our sense of purpose. We're looking for a sense of purpose. And I think that we could find that purpose if we had the rite of passage again. We brought that back. And that's why I'm planning on putting my son through some sort of rite of passage. I think I'll put him through one of the rites I went through. Although my planned rite of passage for him was to do, because he was in the Boy Scouts for a while, I wanted to put him through, I think they call it Snowman here, but in the Dakotas where I found out about it, they call it Zero Hero. And you camp in the winter, and it doesn't count if the temperature goes above 0 degrees. Yeah. That was something I wanted to do. I'm like, let's do it. Below zero camping, get the right equipment? Sure, why not? Because things like that teach you what you're capable of withstanding. Well, since he has decided not to be a Boy Scout anymore, that's no longer on the agenda for the time being. You have to be 16 to do that anyway. I think that's too late for like a first level rite of passage, and I don't think that that's a good first level rite of passage, but I might put him through a test similar to the one I took. The fencing school that I was a member of, what you do is you train for a year, and then there's a test, and the test is 10 minutes long. It's an endurance test. You're not allowed to stop. And so, once we're done with the Rona, what I might do is I might subject him to a 10-minute test. Pick up the sword and fight. And maybe it won't even be with rapiers. Maybe it'll be with more foam weapons, because he's 12, right? It's important that I give him the opportunity to succeed in a way where he's not going to get hurt or he's not going to hurt someone else. So I think I'll do that. That's not a bad idea. Just 10 minutes with foam weapons. I think that would be a good rite of passage, because it forces him to push himself. It forces him to have that endurance. What do you think? Tell me in a comment down below. What do you think about rites of passage generally? What rites of passage have you been through? You know, there are a couple easy ones to think of. You've got, well, for adults, and men in particular, you've got, you know, if you're a Freemason, becoming a Mason is a rite of passage. Becoming an Eagle Scout, or a member of the Order of the Arrow, for you Boy Scouts out there. They don't call them Boy Scouts anymore. Scouts BSA. Which I'm really glad to see that they're allowing girls in, because I really think that and I'm going to call them, just for contrast, I'm going to call them Boy Scouts versus Girl Scouts, because those are the legacy names of them. I feel that the Boy Scouts are more beneficial than the Girl Scouts, not because I think that the Girl Scouts are bad per se, but I've heard a lot of things about them that concern me. And so I'm glad to see that the Scouts BSA are bringing in girls. Which is ironic, because it's not the first time they've allowed it. They've allowed a couple of exceptions in places where other scouting organizations weren't existing. But I'm glad to see it happening more generally, because I really see the benefit in that organization. And scouting generally. I never got a chance to be a scout, but I do see the benefit in the organization. Much like I see the benefit in things like Civil Air Patrol. Civil Air Patrol have multiple rites of passage. You get your Billy Mitchell Award. That's a rite of passage. You get your... I can never remember the middle one. But the last one's the Spats. And the Spats is intense. And that's a rite of passage. Anyone who gets a Spats Award is guaranteed acceptance to the Air Force Academy. There are 10 open slots every year, and they can rarely fill them. Specifically for Spats cadets. That's how intense it is. There's a part of me that wishes I could go back and join the Civil Air Patrol as a cadet, just to make the attempt. Now, I can't, of course, but that was a rite of passage, and I don't know of any Spats cadets that don't succeed, that aren't successful in life, because they've been through all the crap it takes to become a Spats cadet. It's insane. Like, I looked at the criteria and my jaw hit the floor. And little wonder, with all the crap they put themselves through, they really earn it. There's a reason that they're so confident in themselves, because they have achieved competence in so much. Wow, I got a lot of crap. Arrgh. This is not an anti-vehicle zone. Oh my god. So now I gotta figure out where they're gonna let me place my... I love how this is green. It's because of this. So you can fly through it, but you can't place your vehicle. Oh, Mind Arc. I love you so much. How far away am I gonna have to run in order to get this stupid bear? Oh my god. You know what? Forget it. We'll end here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We are on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. As always, I appreciate the support. We'll see you in the next one.